And now it's time for us to discuss more of these headlines and simple keywords with Adam joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning, Lena. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday indeed. It's hot.
Still is, yes. Only gonna get hotter.
Something to look forward to. All right, let's get started. All right, it seems that just 2 days after he survived an attempt on his life, he got the Republican nomination for the presidential election in November. This is our first keyword of the day.
Officially GOP candidate.
So Donald Trump has formally been nominated as a Republican presidential candidate for November's election at the National Convention. Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio has been chosen by Trump to be his running mate. It's interesting to note that J.D. Vance is a relative newcomer. He's only 39 years young, and he's a former critic of Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's right. Trump actually did receive enough votes to become the GOP's presidential nominee. It actually marks his third official presidential bid, of course, following campaigns in 2016 and 2020. This comes just 2 days after he survived an assassination attempt. Onto that in just a little bit. Now, the choice for Vance, as you said, to be his running mate is quite interesting. He was, as you said, once a Trump critic, but he has since become one of the candidate's most trusted defenders on the Capitol Hill and in the media as well. Now, meanwhile, the fallout from Saturday's shooting continues. The U.S. Homeland Security Secretary says the gunman should never have been or never have had a direct line of sight. Now, the gunman was on the roof of a shed outside the rally's security perimeter set up by the Secret Service and opened fire from about 400 feet away from the stage where Trump was speaking. Now, NBC News reported that the location of the shooting was already identified as a security vulnerability by the Secret Service. Now, despite this, CNN reported that the Secret Service did not directly search the building, instead assigning the responsibility to a local response team. This decision has led to criticism of a significant lapse in security. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheetle says they are working to prevent an incident like this from taking place again. Now, the FBI investigation will focus on how the suspect accessed the rooftop despite prior knowledge of its risks. Now, it was confirmed that the shooter, Crooks, used his father's rifle during the attack, and Trump also enjoyed a big legal win after a judge in Florida dismissed the criminal case against Trump of illegally holding on to classified documents as well. So all in all, it's a good few days for Trump, not the shooting, but the events happening afterwards.
That's right. So it seems that going forward, further investigations will happen. And who takes responsibility for a security breach and security failure? That's an important question because this is the security service of the United States we're talking about, right? They're designed to protect former and current presidents. Yeah. All right. We'll wait and see what further investigations tell us. For now, you're right to say that since surviving that shooting, the GOP is almost entirely united and completely behind Trump, which is a stark contrast to the Democratic Party. So we'll wait and see how this affects the presidential election.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, of course. A lot of question marks surrounding Joe Biden. So that's why it's making Trump's campaign a little more, it's gaining strength. So, we'll have to see come November what the results show.
A month ago into the National Democratic Convention, too, and a lot can happen at that timeline. So we'll wait and see. How about that? And more on Trump's nomination, official nomination, that is, at the National Convention coming up in our second hour on JAMIS Focus, too. So we'll elaborate a little bit further. Meanwhile, let's move on to our second keyword of the day.
Simulation exercises.
So the government plans to conduct simulation exercises to share information related to nuclear operations on the Korean Peninsula with the United States. Can you tell us the plan and the details?
Right, so this move follows the signing of joint nuclear deterrence guidelines during President Yoon's attendance at the NATO summit. The National Security Office held a meeting led by Chief Tang Ho-jin. They discussed follow-up measures for this agreement with relevant government departments. Now, participants decided to enhance the implementation of the nuclear deterrence guidelines. This includes sharing information, consulting, and jointly planning and executing nuclear operations on the Korean Peninsula. They'll also conduct annual government-wide simulations and defense military exercises hosted by Seoul and Washington. Additionally, they agreed to firmly respond to illegal military and economic cooperation between Russia and North Korea. They will continue to engage in dialogue with Russia while reviewing and implementing appropriate countermeasures as well. The government plans to prepare for early information sharing with NATO regarding North Korean weapons. Furthermore, they will probably implement nuclear energy and defense industry cooperation plans agreed upon during the NATO summit as well.
All right, so let's move on in the meantime to our third keyword of the day.
Defiant residents.
So on the ongoing doctor strike, the government's deadline for handling the resignations of striking medical residents has passed, but most have not returned as suspected. And as we mentioned on the segment, this means over 10,000 resignations are imminent. That sounds like an absolute disruption to the already, I suppose, delayed, broken medical system. So what's the latest on this front, Adam?
Yeah, so this has been going on for half a year now. So, it's been a while. And many residents have stated that they will not actually return or apply for the second half of the year, indicating that the medical crisis is likely to continue. As of today, only a few residents have expressed their intention to return or resign by the deadline set by the government. The government did request hospitals to confirm the number of vacancies by completing the resignation process for residents by yesterday. Now, only about 8% of nearly 14,000 residents were working across 211 training hospitals. If most non-returning residents are processed as resigned, more than 10,000 mass resignations could occur. It also seems unlikely that the resigned residents will apply for the second half of the year's recruitment as well. The government has encouraged returning residents by offering exceptions to the rule that prevents residents from reapplying within the same year and department if they resigned during their training. The government's decision not to extend the resignation processing deadline is to ensure the smooth progress of the second half's resident recruitment, which starts on the 22nd. Now, unlike previous years, all subjects with vacancies will be recruited, not just essential medical departments. However, the lukewarm response from the residents has raised concerns that the second half's recruitment could also fail as well. Now, there is also internal resistance to hospitals' plans to process unresponsive residents' resignations en masse. The hospitals informed residents that they would be considered to have resigned if they did not express their intentions by the deadline. This has been criticized as excessive by the medical community. So there's a lot of anger being sparked, and the medical community is kind of remaining adamant of its strike and remaining to be out of their posts and remaining resigned. The medical vacuum and tension continues for how much? Yes, about 5-6 months now. So it's been a prolonged medical vacuum and tense standoff between the medical community and the government and hospitals at that, and professors. So there's a lot of a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving parts, a lot of groups involved. Yeah,
and it seems what the medical community could, to a certain extent, unite on is the same demands they have requested from day one, right? The scrapping of the med school quota hike altogether and starting from square one. It's fallen on deaf ears on the government. They've issued an ultimatum to essentially push these residents come back, and it also fell on deaf ears. So you're right. The standoff for now continues. I didn't realize it's already been close to 6 months.
Yeah, it has been quite a while. So, but with no end in sight, it probably could last until the end of the year, or move on to next year, or even furthermore after that. So, it's a tough one. It's a very tough balancing act for all parties involved.
All right. With that, we move on to our fourth keyword of the day.
Driver's fault.
So National Forensic Service has reported that the recent driving accident that occurred near City Hall, which resulted in 9 casualties, appeared to be due to a driver error. So for now, tentatively, the conclusion is driver's negligence. Can you run us through the analysis?
Right, so the police are likely to conclude that the accident was caused by driver negligence rather than a vehicle defect based on the NFS's findings and their own investigation. The forensics report counters the claim by the 68-year-old driver, identified by his surname Cha, that a sudden acceleration due to a vehicle defect caused the accident. Now, he told investigators that the brakes were not working at the time of the accident, but the NFS report stated that Cha had pressed the accelerator pedal or gas pedal over 90% with no evidence of braking. Now, the police believe Cha may have accidentally pressed the accelerator instead of the brake due to panic and confusion. The NFS also suggested that the brake lights appearing to be on in the CCTV footage were likely due to light reflections or flicker effects, so not clear brake lights, but rather reflections on the streets and buildings. Now, with these findings, the focus now shifts to how the authorities will handle Cha's case. The police are considering requesting an arrest warrant. Cha is expected to be transferred to the prosecution for trial, either in custody or not. Now, he is currently undergoing treatment at Seoul National University Hospital, but he was expected to be transferred to another hospital. Now, the police plan to continue the investigation based on Cha's health condition. Regarding the controversy, meanwhile, over insulting notes about the victims of the accident left at the crash site, police say they have completed the investigation into the persons who left notes at the scene and are currently conducting a probe into insulting comments left on the internet by others. Police previously booked and investigated two men who had left insulting notes mocking the victims on charges of defamation. The police's cyber investigation team is looking into 5 additional defamatory online posts. So unfortunately, there are some tasteless kind of comments being left, especially regarding the victims after this accident, if the accident wasn't devastating already. But that investigation is ongoing. But in terms of the accident itself, it does seem like all roads point to driver negligence in this case. But of course, we'll have to see what the final police investigation and prosecution investigations show.
All right, that's what the National Forensic Service's tentative conclusion tells us for now. Let's move on to our final keyword of the day.
Self-employed to jobless.
So the number of self-employed individuals who became unemployed after closing their businesses has increased by over 20% in the past year. So times are really tough. More people have also left the labor market altogether, becoming part of the economically inactive population. Tell us the details.
Yeah, so Statistics Korea data shows that the average monthly number of unemployed people in the first half of this year was 918,000. That's about a 7% increase compared to the same period last year. Among the unemployed, 26,000 individuals were former self-employed workers, marking a 23% increase from the previous year. Now, this increase reflects their failure to be re-employed despite efforts to secure new jobs after closing their businesses. Now, the number of economically inactive former self-employed individuals has grown to an average of 268,000 per month, representing a 6% increase from the year before. Economically inactive individuals are defined as those aged over 15 who are neither employed nor trying to find jobs. Now, the main reason for stopping work was lack of work or business difficulties. Other reasons included the completion of temporary or seasonal work, and dissatisfaction with working conditions. Now, National Tax Service data also shows that nearly 1 million individuals and companies in Korea reported closing their businesses last year. Weak earnings was, of course, the most common reason for the shutdowns. Now, weak domestic demand is anticipated to cause more closures, especially in the restaurant, accommodation, and wholesale and retail sectors for the time being as well. So more conditions for more struggles for more business owners, especially small business owners. So we could see more closing of doors of businesses and those self-employed people most likely becoming unemployed yet again, which is the kind of the trend now. It's difficult for them to kind of search for jobs, of course, because they've been out of, waged employment for a long time. They've been self-employed. So, of course, their work experience and companies looking for experienced workers, especially, there's just not enough spaces for them at these companies by the looks of things. So, yeah, it's still tough. So, yeah, especially with things getting more expensive, it's even tougher for them to get by.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Do we have any hope-filled news? One of these days.
When in terms of the economy, it does get quite depressing every day reporting on this. But yeah, hopefully there's some light at the end of the tunnel, albeit a very long tunnel at that, it seems.
You know what? We are great at adapting, and that's what we're doing. At least keep all our listeners informed, Adam. We appreciate your insights. Never shoot the messenger, I know. Thank you.
Please don't. You're very welcome. I'll see you tomorrow.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.